the Sunday before last, before our great snow blizzard, we started a new series called No Matter What. We're taking a look at the book of Philippians, kind of just looking at some big themes in all 4 chapters. The idea is to fight for a perspective that leads to joy no matter what. So it's implied in this idea of no matter what, that means there's something you're going to have to fight for in order to actualize this joy that our faith should bring. So we're going to kind of get in the headspace of some of the frustrations, maybe some of the complaints, maybe some of the aggravating parts of our life. I'm sure there's something happening in your world right now that you would maybe say is an unanswered prayer, or something that is not going the way that you hoped or intended, and you're hoping that somehow you can find some healing or some guidance or some alleviation through it. So in order to help us maybe recall some of those frustrations, we're going to look to the internet, the most frustrating place in the world. Tell me if you resonate with some of these memes. I'm a meme guy. If we're friends on social media, we might be sending each other a bunch of memes and dad jokes. This one here, this is the face you make. Oh, you lost an email that I sent you, and now you want me to waste my time by looking for it and resending it to you. I don't know about you, but email in general is just like the least efficient, least urgent form of communication. Where are my email people at? Few and far between, right? So I think we can all resonate with this. Let me see what you think about this next one. When the server comes to the table while you're chomping on your food and asks if everything is okay, and you're just like, it's good. I've never been a server before, but surely they teach you to give them a second. Don't ask them to speak with food in their mouth. Couple more. When you're 10 dangs, 20 yes, 6, oh, I see, and 4, man, that's crazy. And they still won't stop talking. Sadly, that probably happens in the church lobby every once in a while. Oh, that's crazy, bro. Just read the room, right? All right, one more. Sometimes it's not that you're having a bad day, you're just kind of hungry. How many of you kind of identify with this, where before a meal, after a meal, you are a different human being? You may not be that mad. You may not be having a bad day. You might just be hungry. And hopefully snacks are nearby. Today, if you're having a bad day, we got you covered with a nacho bar as soon as church is over. Listen. Being angry doesn't make you a bad person. You might just be a mad person, The Bible says you can be angry without sinning. Jesus demonstrated this. God demonstrated this. There's nothing in Scripture that prohibits us from having a bad day. There's nothing wrong with things not going the way that you planned. Doesn't mean you have weak faith. Doesn't mean that you are an immature believer if you find yourself discouraged or disillusioned with the way life is going. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. Today, what we're going to realize, though, is despite what you feel, you may feel bad, but hopefully we're going to find the perspective we need to do good. We can feel bad, but still choose to do good. That's exactly what Paul is saying to this church, this ancient Greek town known as Philippi. Paul was writing this letter while in prison himself, writing to a group of Christ followers who are being mistreated by their neighbors. They're being shunned from the marketplace. It's hard for them to find groceries because no one wants to do business with a Christian in the ancient world. And in these small village towns, everybody knew everybody's business, so you stood out like a sore thumb if you were a Christ follower. And knowing the persecution that they were facing, Paul still decides to offer them a heavenly perspective on our earthly issues. A no matter what statement. You may be dealing with something right now that you're thinking, how is this going to improve? Why is this happening to me? When things go wrong, we usually find ourselves asking, what did I do to deserve this? God, what are you going to do to fix it? I want to offer you 2 different perspectives that I think will help us lead to joy. One, not so much. This is the idea of this isn't good enough as compared to this could be better. It may feel like semantics, but there's a lot in those 2 perspectives. It's implied in this idea of this isn't good enough. that you're deferring blame. You're not taking ownership. You're asking, God, what have I done to deserve this? Have you forgotten about me? Come on. And it's very understandable, some of the things you might be going through, that your default reaction, that my default reaction would be like, come on, this isn't okay. What's happening here? Bank account, appliances going wrong, drama at work, a broken relationship with friend. Name the list. There's plenty of things that it's totally understandable to be frustrated about. But as we're going to see, the way that we externalize, the way that we express those frustrations is going to say something about our faith. There's a much better way to respond besides just, this isn't good enough. If we can find within us the faith to say, this could be better, what that means is we're acknowledging that, you know what, I don't really like the situation I've found myself in. Like, this isn't okay. I'm not enjoying this. I'm not having a good day. But just maybe there's something to be learned here. Just maybe there's something that I'm going to gain from this experience, and I hope that things will be better. And God, I'm going to bring my request to you, but I'm also going to entrust you with the results. It's easier said than done. And the advice that I'm about to share with you that Paul gave the Philippian church, knowing the persecution they're facing, at face value, it may sound like it's lacking compassion. It may sound like it's lacking sympathy, but it's a no matter what statement that I think if we can grip, if we can internalize, then we can find joy even in our struggle, even in our inconveniences, even when things are going wrong. So imagine you're being shunned, you're being mistreated, you're being excluded. Imagine you're kind of in survival mode, and a spiritual leader says this: do everything without complaining and arguing so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. So that's your advice for my suffering, is just to not complain about it? Seems like you're not really in touch with the things that we're going through, Paul. Like, do you know what's happening? Like, how can you just tell me to not complain? Is Paul advocating that we're supposed to be kind of just faking it till we make it? Is he saying that we just have to pretend like everything is okay because we're Christians, and if we somehow have a difficult circumstances, is it a reflection of our faith? No. Paul is saying that there's kind of something is revealed in the struggle about our faith. Remember, this idea is supposed to lead to shining like lights. Something about this suffering, this circumstance, this situation is supposed to lead to people seeing Jesus in and through you and I. And it's kind of hard to do that when we find ourselves complaining. You see, there's a difference between complaining and recognizing that things kind of hurt, that I'm struggling, that I'm having a bad day. As I was studying this talk and wanting to understand why Paul would just put it so bluntly, so black and white, I started researching just some different thoughts on what happens when we are complaining. And I'm going to read something to you that a psychologist would say, that here's what happens when you and I engage in complaining. It says, complaining is all about blaming others with a distinct lack of awareness or acknowledgement of how one may contribute to the situation, or at the very least move past it. There is no felt or expressed intention to find relief, answers, or improvement in any way. And oftentimes, the very act of complaining is an act of absolution from the responsibility and possibility to feel better. I know I'm not giving you the most comforting sermon yet. I know that we're not necessarily providing a lot of hope just yet, but if you just stay with me, the thing that you would look at in your life that is frustrating you, you think that when you look at your life that just doesn't seem to be going the right way, the thing that is fueling your frustration, the thing that you find yourself complaining about, I promise you, we unlock the secret of this verse, We will find hope. We will find healing. But we've got to understand what Paul's talking about when he talks about the detriment of being complaining. Other translations say grumbling or murmuring or whining. You don't have to look too far on social media to kind of see that this is kind of the language of 2022. Outrage is kind of the social currency now. Whoever is the most offended also gets the most attention. Triggered is kind of a buzzword now, and it could mean anything from something as low as something that just frustrates you, or something that maybe even as serious as brings back like past trauma to your brain. But we throw this word triggered around like it's a penalty flag, letting you know that I'm holding you responsible to police my emotions because I cannot police them on my own. That's what it means to say that you're triggered or you are offended. If you post on social media that you love orange juice, all the apple juice people are going to come after you and say, well, what about us? What about the apple juice? I'm triggered. If you've ever been on the other side of a conversation where somebody's making way too big a deal out of something, they're making a mountain out of a molehill. They're being overly critical, where it feels like the punishment doesn't fit the crime, you understand what it's like being on the receiving end of complaining and arguing and grumbling. And it makes it hard to listen to that person. It makes it hard to take them seriously. It definitely makes you not want to listen to what they think about the way the world should work, if all they're doing is focusing in on the problem. I would say that no matter what, simple and sincere is better, is greater than complex and critical. There's going to be no shortage of things to trigger us. Jesus himself said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. You see, there's something about approaching our problems with dignity and with a level head. There's something about approaching our problems with a sober mind that is supposed to reveal Jesus. There's something about your struggle that's supposed to make a statement about how God's Spirit is at work in our lives. And as long as we're focused in on the complaints that we have, it's hard to be committed to conducting ourselves in a Christ-like manner. Complaints and commitments, they can't coexist. We can't be committed to the Lord and trusting that he's got plans for us if we are spending all of our time focusing in on what's wrong with our life and what's wrong with the world around us. Now, I want to be realistic for a second here. It's very likely that there's something happening in your world right now that it's taking everything within you to not just feel defeated, like you've lost, and that things are just never going to get better. The pastor's heart in me wants to just take a minute to affirm the struggle that you may find yourself in. I want to let you know that it's okay if you're going through it right now. I want to let you know that we're here for you and we can handle the problems that you're going through. We can help you. We can find counseling. We can do coffee. There's all kinds of things that we can do to help you through the struggle. To be a Christian doesn't mean that you're going to avoid adversity. We just have to figure out how to voice the need for help in a God-honoring way. Matter of fact, Jesus spoke about this in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 5, he says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." It's a weird blessing to pronounce on somebody that, hey, you're grieving, be blessed. No, the blessing comes in the opportunity to receive comfort. The blessing comes in the opportunity for your wounds, your scars, the struggles you're facing, to be brought to a God who understands and sees your pain. And a lot of times we feel like I'm a Christian. I've got to act like everything is together. I've got to put my Sunday face on. I can't let these people know what's going wrong in my life. And we end up bottling it up, and it ends up exploding in the form of complaining and arguing. But we need to figure out how to do something different with our pain. And instead of expressing the need to file a complaint, let's express the need to feel compassion. Let's learn how to express the need to feel comfort. Let's learn how to express the need for someone to come alongside of us and help us through this struggle. If we don't do that, if we don't learn how to externalize the internal things that are haunting us, it's going to manifest in not just complaints, but also arguments. These two things really come hand in hand. That's why Paul says, do all things without complaining and arguing. If we're not careful, and if we don't pursue healing, if we don't make ourselves vulnerable and open to help, our complaints are going to become disputes. And this is what Christians seem to sadly be known for. See, how we process our pain, it matters. Because if we don't deal with it, it's going to find its way to the surface. And it will discredit our claim. Sadly, Christians are all too well known for what we are against, not what we are for. And Jesus himself said that one of the prime indicators that we are followers of him, that we are his disciples, is the way that we love one another. But Christianity is so divided. It's so fractioned. Listen, there's going to be a day where I do something that bothers you. There's going to be a day where somebody says something that bothers you in the lobby. There's going to be a day where somebody posts something that doesn't align with your worldview, and you're going to be like, how could we even eat with that person if they believe this thing? Like, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be things that frustrate you because the church is made of people, and people are not perfect, and people have different opinions. We've got to be a church who handles conflict, adversity, and disputes differently because it says something about this Jesus that we follow. So how can we prevent our complaints from becoming arguments? How can we prevent our complaints from sitting in the driver's seat of how we navigate through disagreements and disputes? Well, I don't know about you, but I've heard that when wives get together, that they sometimes share some things that, could be better about the way their husband treats them at home and whatnot. This never happens with any of my guy friends. We all talk about how amazing our wives are. But I have heard that, a lot of times when people are in the first couple of years of marriage, that wives are pretty shocked at the lack of basic living skills that the male species brings to the marriage, cooking and cleaning and of the sorts. But, it's always just been amazing for me. I've never had any complaint against Eric. We're preacher. We're in ministry. We never fight. We never argue. Let me see if any people who have, if you've ever gone through parenting, especially parenting newborns, I want to see if this chart agrees, if this chart kind of resonates with where you've been. This is a graph of the loudest sounds on Earth. It starts with concert speakers, fireworks, gunfire, the blue whale, the space shuttle, and then finally a dad's sneeze. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about dads. We immediately become hilarious when we have kids, and our sneezes become like the loudest thing on earth. You know what it's like when you hear a dad sneeze. Like they have the whole wind up, the sneeze, and then like it takes something out of us when a dad sneezes. And I just remember a lot of times, a baby waking up because I just have allergies. I can't help it. Listen, that's something silly, but when we are dealing with frustrations in life, when things aren't going our way, when money is running out, when there's drama at work, when the world seems to hate each other, when all of our friends are experiencing drama, something insignificant like a sneeze can turn a complaint into an argument really quickly, right? And we can all of a sudden start conducting ourselves in a manner that isn't reflective of Jesus' heart for reconciliation. So we've got to come to realize, as Christ followers, that a disagreement and an argument aren't the same thing. As Christ followers, or as people who are supposed to be known for our love for one another, a disagreement, a dispute, a difference of opinions doesn't have to turn into an argument. Doesn't have to turn into a battle. And as we begin to look inward and evaluate the source of a lot of our frustrations and the source of a lot of the relational friction we may be facing, or we look at why things have gone the way they have gone, not according to plan, when we look at why things are happening and what we're bringing to God and how we're asking Him to fix things and what we're asking Him to heal, I think we also have to examine the way we talk about our problems, the way we talk about our differences, the way we talk about our pet peeves, the way we talk about our frustration. It matters. Look, in the book of Luke, it tells us that out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. What's coming out of our mouth is indicative of what is in our heart. And we have to understand that when we are expressing our frustrations, man, that our faith is revealed. For better or for worse. It could be a good thing. You might be saying all the right things, trusting that God is going to bring you joy. But if we are complaining, if we are arguing, you have to realize, for better, for worse, this could be amazing or it could be awful, but my faith, it's revealed in the expressions of my frustrations. My trust in God does not blend well with my complaints about life. Matter of fact, God takes this very seriously. So seriously that if you look all the way back in Numbers chapter 14, there was an entire generation that was blocked from receiving the promise of the land of milk and honey because of their grumbling, because of their complaining, and what their words revealed about their heart. What their words revealed about their commitment, about their trust in God and His leadership in their life. In Numbers chapter 14, verse 20, it says this: after they're going back and forth, lots of complaining, and God is just about ready to be done with it, and Moses is kind of interceding, asking him not to just destroy everybody. God says, I will pardon them as you have requested, but as surely as I live, and as surely as the earth is filled with the Lord's glory, not one of these people will enter that land, the promised land. They have all seen my glorious presence and the miraculous signs I performed both in Egypt and the wilderness. But again and again, they have tested me by refusing to listen to my voice. They will never even see the land I swore to give their ancestors. None of those who have treated me with contempt will ever see it. Listen, I think you and I, we have a choice of who we're going to be in the struggles that we face today. God takes complaining very seriously. Serious enough to let an entire generation die off so that the next generation that would trust Him could inherit the promise. So I just wonder, in our lives right now, what blessings might be just out of reach due to a negative disposition, right? what answers to prayer might be eluding us because we have focused more on our frustrations than God's faithfulness. Now remember the context that Paul is writing here in Philippians. He's in prison. He's chained. He is suffering, writing to people who are suffering. And yet still he says, don't complain. There's something about the way that we suffer, if we suffer with dignity, if we suffer with trust, if we suffer with our eyes on Jesus, that can point people to him. I would love to tell you that if you prayed a prayer and trusted Jesus to be the Lord of your life, that all your problems will be solved. I can tell you that the greatest problem you ever face will be solved. And that's knowing where you will be in eternity. But until we stand face to face and hear Jesus welcoming us home, there's going to be things in our life that can give us fuel for frustration or can draw us in closer to Jesus. And if you want to know where you stand with those, look at the way you talk about the problems that are happening in your life and in the world around us. Listen, this world is broken. And your social media algorithm is making sure that you know this world is broken. Let me tell you what's happening, why negativity spreads with such greater intensity than positivity. Your brain is designed to prevent pain from happening. Your subconscious is in constant readiness to prevent past traumas from repeating themselves. We are in this constant mode where our brain is ready to just send cortisol into our systems and let us stand our ground and fight our way through the frustration. So you are primed and ready for negativity. The news media outlets know this. Social media knows this. They know that negativity not only spreads online quickly, but it spreads through our psyche quickly. So knowing that that is kind of our disposition, that's kind of our default, the battle is going to be that much greater to fight for a perspective of faith that no matter what, there is a reason for this suffering, and no matter what, I believe, while I may hate what I'm going through, I believe that this has the power to make me become more like Jesus. That is the process of sanctification. That is the process of holiness being lived out in our life, that we are refined by the struggles we face. When I officiate weddings, I always draw attention to the metal of the ring that the bride and groom are about to place on one another's fingers. You know, it's a pretty brutal process for this metal to go through, to be ready, to be an adornment, a piece of jewelry to be viewed by other people. The jeweler, the goldsmith, the silversmith knows that it's a lot of heat and a lot of pressure to cause the impurities to rise to the surface and be scraped off. And the jeweler knows that this piece of metal is now ready to be put on display when he can see his reflection because of the refining process. I think life is a lot like that process. That God might be allowing the heat to be turned up in our lives so that we would experience a refining process that would lead to us being a greater reflection of Him. And it's hard to shine like the stars that it says we're supposed to here in Philippians 2. If we are given so easily to complaining and arguing. I'm not here to tell you that Christianity is going to make your life any easier. But I am here to tell you that our faith is going to make your life better. Better doesn't always mean more comfortable. Better doesn't always mean more money in the bank, right? But better means that I'm trusting in Jesus more. And I'm becoming more like him every step of the way. People are looking at you right now, if they know you're a Christian at the workplace, to see how you'll respond to the drama, to see how you'll respond to the diagnosis, to see how you'll respond to the disappointment. May you and I find the faith that we need to respond in a way that points people toward Jesus. Amen.